go away, okay? Go read the paper or something.
Today is Wednesday, November 18th, 2009. My name is Frieda Reitman, and it's my pleasure to interview today Elaine Sharlach at her home in Stamford as part of the Oral History Archive of the Jewish Historical Society of Lower Fairfield County. I have been looking forward to this for a long time. I like to start with your family. Tell us a little bit about your parents and when they came to Stamford.
My mother was born in New York City on Broome Street. And my grandparents came from Romania. Her parents came from Romania. And they lived in New York. And then my grandmother's brother opened a store in Keokuk, Iowa, because it was where the miners went. Somebody told me that there's 3 rivers come together there, and the miners stopped there before they went out to California for the gold rush. And my grandfather went out there with him to the store to help him in the store, work in the store, whatever. And so they lived in Keokuk, Iowa for quite a while, until the girls, my mother and her sister, and there was a brother also, got older, and they were afraid they would marry non-Jews, so they moved back to the New York area. And so they both married Jews, so I guess it was okay then. And then my mother and father got married. And they lived, my father was managing a store for this company, Ruby Lane, in Philadelphia. They lived, my mother always remembered they lived on Germantown Avenue. And we went to Philadelphia a number of years ago, and I asked someone about Germantown Avenue, and they said, "You don't want to go to Germantown Avenue." So, and then Ruby Lane came to Stamford and opened a store here. My father was managing the store, and then they closed the store. It was during the Depression, I guess, because I was born in 1932, and I think I was just a couple of months older. It was just before I was born. And so my father opened, he had nothing to do, and all he knew was they were selling dry goods. So he opened a store, and he always said, the store was the size of the store. It was under a stairwell, like in between 2 stores, under a stairwell that went to the upper floor. And he said if he stood in the middle and held out both arms, he could touch the walls on the side. So he said for $500, he went down to used to go to the Lower East Side to Grand Street and he bought all this merchandise. He bought enough merchandise to fill up the store. And my mother worked in the store, I guess. Actually, my mother's parents lived with us. And first we lived on Coolidge Avenue. I was born in Stamford, and I lived in Stamford all my life. First we lived on Coolidge Avenue, then we moved to Rock Spring Road. We were renting, lived on the 2nd floor. And then finally, my father had enough money to buy a house. He bought a house on Newfield Avenue with a $500 down payment that he borrowed from one of his friends. And then we lived in that. I lived in that house until I got married on Newfield Avenue. Yeah. It isn't there anymore. There's a little office building there now. It was at the intersection of Newfield and Oakland Avenues. And that was it. My father's family, he came over first with an uncle, Uncle Charlie he called him, and he came first. And by then his father had died, and his mother was a widow. Then she came after that with her daughter. And she had family that lived in Bridgeport, cousins. I guess maybe they were Charlie's children, I don't remember. But they lived in Bridgeport, and I remember they lived in a big house. and they were, it was 3 sisters and the mother and a brother. Anyway, 2 of the girls had already gone to school, and they were teachers, so they were really they were really educated already. So when my father's mother came, they bought her a little farm in Newtown, Connecticut, so she wouldn't be in their way, and she would raise chickens. She had chickens there, and I remember we would go there. I think there's a picture here of her on the farm. She had 2 houses on this piece of property in Newtown, on the main road, and whatever house somebody wanted to rent, she moved into the other house. So sometimes we would go visit her, and she'd be in this house, and sometimes in this house. And I remember there was an old bus on the property, and there was and a cow lived in the bus. Okay, I remember a cow being there. Or my mother said there was a cow, because they went to visit once with my mother's brother, and he was a little boy then. It was the day after my mother met my father, and he wouldn't drink the milk because all the milk came from the cow, and they had to put it in a bottle so he would think the milk came from a bottle because he didn't drink milk from cows.
I like that story.
Okay. And so she got married again to someone, I guess, who was a widower, he had children, and he lived there with her. But we never called him. All we called him was Mr. Levitov, and we used to say she was Grandma and he was Mr. Levitov. I used to call her Bubby, and my mother's mother I called Grandma, and she was Bubby. And we would go to visit. We would drive to Newtown, like every Sunday or every other Sunday, to visit her. And I remember when they built the Merritt Parkway, because my father was it would be so much easier to get there. Otherwise, I think we used to have to go to Danbury and end up in Newtown. I mean, it was a major thing to get there. He was so happy, my father, when they built the Merritt Parkway, we could get right on the parkway and get out that road that went to Easton, Newtown or something. And it was just so much easier to go to visit her.
So when did your parents settle in Stamford? That was in
must have been, I was born in Stamford, so it must have been like 1929, I guess.
And you have 2 siblings?
My 2 brothers, one is 7 years younger than me, and one is 14 years younger than me.
The big sister?
I was a big sister, and my mother had worked in the store, and as soon as I got old enough to add or whatever I did, I remember I worked in the store too. Saturdays I had to go to the store. You had to work in the store. And my brother Larry remembers my father used to tell him to sweep the floor, and he could never sweep the floor right. Even now he'll say, Elaine, you would be so proud of me because I swept the floor now the way Daddy was trying to show me.
Was that difficult for you because
it was very. I mean, my father was very he wasn't strict. He was I mean, he was the boss. Okay, he was
Yes.
the boss of my mother, the boss of me, and he was
Right. How would you characterize your home in terms of Jewish involvement?
My grandparents belonged to Agudas Shalom. My mother and father always belonged to Agudas Shalom.
Okay.
And Lester's family belonged to Agudas Shalom. I mean,
were they Orthodox?
In the sense that Orthodox was Orthodox. Yeah. I mean, I remember they changed the dishes for Passover, that we had Passover dishes, and my grandmother always went to the kosher butcher. Always. I mean, it was always the whole story with the kosher butcher and the chickens. Oh my God. Okay.
Okay, those are your childhood memories.
Yeah, right. She always went to the kosher butcher, And oh yeah, always cooked on Thursday and Friday morning, you know, and
For Shabbat?
yeah, yeah. And her brother was her maiden name was Fogel, my grandmother. So her brother had a store on Pacific Street. Fogel's. It was called Fogel's. I don't know if you. So they had 3 children, Fred and Hy, and Toby was a year older than I was. So I was always friendly with Toby, and we used to go and play on Saturday afternoons because we used to go play, or maybe it wasn't Saturday. Did her father close the store on Saturday? I don't think so, no. But we used to play. His store was on Pacific Street, and I remember playing in the backyard where all the tenement, I can remember the back porches with all the steps going up, and they had clotheslines hanging with the clothes. To this day, I would love to have a clothesline in the backyard so I could hang the clothes outside.
Was the store open on Sunday?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think he closed the store on Saturday.
I know, on Sunday.
Oh, on Sunday, yeah, I guess. I don't remember that. Our store was always open on Saturday. I mean, we closed on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There always used to be a list in the paper of the store. I mean, there were so many Jewish merchants. It was a whole list of stores that were going to be closed on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And, you know, there were all Jewish merchants downtown on Atlantic Street and Main Street, and that was it. I remember I used to have to go to the bank for my father. I used to take the deposit sometimes to the bank and walk to the bank. I mean, would you send a child now with a bank deposit with cash to walk to the bank? I don't know. Okay, I used to go to the bank.
And where did you go to school?
First I went to Julia Stark School, and then when we moved to Newfield Avenue, I went to Belltown School, and we used to go home for lunch. We used to, 12 to 1 was for lunch, and I lived right, and we used to walk home for lunch. Very few children brought lunch. They went home for lunch. And after that, I went to Burdick Junior High School, and I went to Stanford High School. When I met Lester, I was still in Burdick Junior High School. I was 13 or 12, 13, I think. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
And that was that's all. I never went away from home. I went from my father's house to my husband's house. And I didn't go. I mean, we had an apartment. We lived in Greenwich because my father owned a building there, and he had a store in Greenwich. And it was in an apartment upstairs in Greenwich, so we lived in Greenwich, which I love. We used to walk on Greenwich Avenue at night, and there used to be an ice cream store, and we used to go have ice cream.
Where did you meet the people who became your friends?
In school, or Roz Ziskin, her name was Bloomfield, they moved to Belltown, and someone said to them, there's another Jewish family she goes to Belltown School, okay? Right, Ronald Schwartz was, and Linda Wapsie lived there, went to Belltown School, and Roz. And that's how I met Roz. And then I met her cousin, who was also Rosalind. She was a year older, but that's how I met her. And and the people that I knew, I'm still friendly with them. And Natalie Schacht, I knew. We were born just a few days apart. Our mothers were in the hospital at the same time, and I think she was born 2 days before me. Unfortunately, she died very young, Natalie. But, or maybe it seemed young to me when she died. It was about 10 years ago, I think. But I always used to remind her that she was older than I was.
Did you ever encounter anti-Semitism in school?
I don't think so. My grandmother lived with us, and she was always never wanted me to go out with or play with
With children who were not Jewish?
who were not Jewish. It was very, very important that you just hung out with Jewish children, okay? In fact, when my father wanted to move to Newfield Avenue, my mother didn't want to move there because it was there were no Jews up there, it was too far away, okay? In fact, I always wanted to live on Lafayette Street because that's where all the Jewish kids, a lot of Jewish people lived on Lafayette Street. I couldn't understand why we couldn't live on Lafayette Street, okay?
Well, that says something about you being sensitive to things.
And we always went to the Jewish Center. See, we went to Stanford High School and we would walk down the street and go to the Jewish Center.
So basically all your friends were Jewish?
Yes, yes. And even now, most of our friends are Jewish. Now, our children's friends won't be. Another thing was I never went away to school. See, if I had gone away, maybe you broaden your friendships or something. I lived in Stanford all my life, and that was it.
Okay.
So that I really never.
What was customary at that time.
Right. That was it.
And when did you get married?
1951. I graduated high school in 1950 and I got married in 1951. I was 18. And Lester was 18, 20, 21, I guess.
And did you continue to work and to have
Yes,
to go down to the store?
I worked in the store, and then Lester was working at the Stanford department store and he lost his job, so then he went to work in the store too. So that was it. We worked in the store, okay? And so that was it, and I worked until I had my first child.
So tell us about your children.
Jeffrey was born in 1953, and he's fine. He's not married. He's gay, which was very difficult for me to come to terms with at the time. Not because I wasn't liberal. I'm very liberal, and as long as it's somebody else's child, it was fine with me. I found that very difficult, but I came to terms with it. And we went to these parents' meetings, and we've been going for so many years. At this point, I don't have the patience to for it. People used to call, our name was, and then people used to call. I would stop everything and talk on the phone if there was an upset mother that called or whatever, and on. And Jeffrey was fine. Maybe Lester was much more accepting than I was. I think I was very self-centered in the way that I wanted. Everybody is the way my family will work out. They will marry people that we think are wonderful, and those people in turn will think that we were wonderful, and we're all going to live happily ever after. I think that maybe it was because it upset my life, the way I wanted things to be. So that we eventually got over that, and then Brian was born 2 years later after Jeffrey, and he's fine. They live in Reading, Connecticut. Jeffrey was living. Well, actually, I can go into that later. But anyway, Brian came after that, and then 5 years later, Deborah was born. And Deborah has 2 sons, and she lives in Fairfield, so she's nearby. And Brian and Betsy Brian married Betsy Hirsch. They lived across the street from us, where we lived on Haviland Road, and that's how they met. I said to we had gotten friendly with the parents, because Lester was having heart problems, was on the Pritikin diet, and then Betsy's father told him that Lester was doing so well on this Pritikin diet, and he didn't realize that we lived across the street from them. So anyway, we got friendly, but then we went out to dinner. And I said, and then I met Betsy, and I said, I'd love for Brian to meet Betsy. And so Brian and Betsy met, and I said to Brian the next day, she's a nice girl, isn't she? He said, she's really nice. And they had one daughter, one child, Molly, who's wonderful. She's now at the University of California in Berkeley, and she's just got a National Science Foundation grant for the next 3 years. Wow. She graduated from Williams, and so she'll end up with a doctorate in microbiology. But anyway, she's an absolute joy. She's very bright, and I spent a lot of time, when she was little, Betsy had a job that required a lot of time, and so I spent a lot of time with Molly. So, I would take her to school. If Betsy was going to be away on business for a few days, she would stay with us. And we would take her back and forth to Reading and to school and whatever. But she's an absolute joy. And I spent time with Deborah's children too, when they were little.
And I see the joy in your face talking about it.
Okay, yeah, they're a joy. They really are. So that I'm grateful for that. And we get to Thanksgiving. We'll be together. Jeffrey will come, and Brian and Beth. Molly's not coming home for Thanksgiving because she'll come home for Christmas. And she was home. She was home in the summer when it was Lester's 80th birthday. And.
So your children went to school in Stamford?
In Stamford, yeah. They all went. They went to Newfield School, and then when we moved to Haviland Road, off Long Ridge Road, Deborah went to Riverbank, and then to Clune, and they went to. Brian and Jeffrey went to the junior high school on Tom's Road, Dublin. And then to Rippewam, and Deborah went to West Hill. And then Jeffrey went to Northwestern. He studied journalism. And then he came back to New York. He graduated from NYU Law School. And Brian went to Lehigh. And then he graduated from Wharton. He has an MBA from Wharton. And Deborah went to the University of Connecticut, and she worked as a dietitian for a while. That's how she met her husband, actually. He still works for a food service company. And actually now Deborah just went back to school. Her oldest son is graduating high school this year. He's 17. And her younger son is 13. He's going to be 14. And they live in Fairfield, go to public school. And
did any of your children work in the business?
Brian did for a while. He was in between jobs, and he worked. That was before Lester sold the business. If he had asked me, I would have said no. But so he did. But Brian he's in between jobs now. He was working for McGraw-Hill for 18 years, and so he's been out of work for about a year. But he wasn't. Thankfully, Molly's been on scholarships, and she just got this Science Foundation grant, so financially she's all set for school. And Betsy stopped working when Molly could take care of herself. Then Betsy stopped working, and so she doesn't work. And this past summer, Brian went on a cross-country bike tour, as long as he didn't have a job. and he went on by bicycle from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, and they went on this long bike trip. Well, to Brian, a job was never the most important. A job was a place you had to go so you could get 4 or 6 weeks vacation or whatever, so you could go on a bike ride or skiing or hiking or something, okay? So he's fine. He's looking for a job, and I'm sure eventually he'll get one, or else Betsy will find a job, maybe, and it's not really my problem.
Did you continue with Aguda Shalom, which was in the history of your family?
No, we stopped, and then we never joined any place. I would have. Lester, I don't know whether it was when Jeffrey came out and he was gay. No, you know what happened? My mother and father always went, and then my mother had a sister that never had any children, and we were like her children, and that she used to come too. And my brother Freddie was in the business too, and he was married, and they had one child, and they used to come, and so we sat together and blah blah blah. Then my brother Freddie got divorced, and after my aunt died, and then my father moved to Florida, and so it wasn't my thing that much, and we just didn't go. And I would have joined Temple Sinai. Lester was never, I don't know whether for financial reasons, I would have joined someplace, but he didn't. So, but anyway, Deborah belongs to a reformed temple in Bridgeport. Temple Israel, is it Israel? I don't even remember the name, but we go with her on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We get tickets and we go with her, so that's fine. So I said we sit with her.
Were the children bar mitzvah?
Oh yes, oh yeah, at Aguda Shalom, and Rabbi Yerenkrantz married. Yeah, the children were bar mitzvah at Aguda Shalom, and they went to Hebrew school there. Brian, I had to take out of Hebrew school because the kids were acting up so. I took him out, and then he said to me the last day, "Please, Ma, just let me go for the last day. It'll be a blast, okay?" So you can see how much discipline there was at the Hebrew school. He was having such a wonderful time. He hated to stay, okay? It wasn't for... Although he is very... probably the most... In fact, Jeffrey still goes to services. When he's in New York, he goes to the Gay Temple has services that are... I think at the Javits Center they have them. There's so many people there. Jeffrey goes, and Deborah goes there, and Brian. In fact, for a while we went with Brian they belonged to a temple in Georgetown, and the rabbi there was very nice. We liked him very much. He died young. He was, as a matter of fact, he was gay, and so we spoke to him often, and. Even he went to New York. In fact, we even went to services in New York just to see him. He was good, and he died of a heart attack very young. I think he was only in his 50s.
I'm just trying to.
So I'm very Jewish. Okay, we always celebrate. Passover. I have to come home from Florida early. Passover is so early this year. And, I just...
If you have any comments about the Jewish community, that would be interesting.
I mean,
But don't force yourself.
I did, this morning I went to the book review Rabbi Cohn did about why it was based on the book Why Jews Are Liberals. By Norman Podhoretz. I mean, he was a liberal who became a neoconservative, so some of the people there were, I'm still very liberal. Okay. And, I don't know, what did Lester want me to tell you? I don't know. This is...
did you join some organizations in Stanford?
Oh yeah, I joined National when the kids were little. I belonged to National Council of Jewish Women. So we used, so there were meetings were at night, so it was a way for me, I think, to get out. And my mother belonged to Hadassah. She was a life member of Hadassah. And when the kids got older, I remember I worked. Then I worked in the store for a while, which I couldn't stand because Lester was there as part. It was always too much. Then I went to work. I went to work at Lord and Taylor, which I absolutely loved. And I was spending twice as much as I was making buying clothes. Okay, so it was a very expensive job. And so I did that for a while, so that was fun. And then I remember before that I volunteered at Stanford Hospital. I had that cute little uniform with the orange jumper and the white blouse, yes. And I volunteered at, first I think I volunteered at St. Joseph's Hospital because it was nearby, right, and then I did it at Stanford Hospital. And that's all. I really never did much after all. I said I think I'm the last woman in the world that likes to stay home.
Do any?
Huh?
Nobody likes to stay home all the time. But
I don't mind staying home. I'm terrible.
Now.
Oh yeah, even before. We had a big house on Haviland Road, and I used to work in the yard all the time. So, there was a lot to do. I mean, Lester worked, and I always cooked. I always cleaned. My father was a stickler for neatness. We used to in the store, all the towels were folded so they were all even this way, one way and one the other. And I still keep my linen closet looking like that, okay? I think I'm still trying to please my father, so I have to keep everything just so. He had everything just so in the store. He was very neat.
And was Lester neat in the store?
No. Lester does not realize that neatness counts, okay? And cleanliness is next to godliness. Okay? So sometimes we don't see eye to eye on things. Like, you see, he put those papers over there because they were here, but he should have piled them up neatly. You see how the right-hand corners aren't even? Well, then I can't explain it to you. If you don't understand it, I can't explain it.
There are people who go either way, and that's fine with me, accepting of all.
And I think my daughter, some doctor or something must have told her once that you don't have to be like your mother. Okay? Because at that house, neatness does not count either. Okay? And I try when I go there, but I just kind of gave up. Okay? And now the kids are older, but there always used to be kids in the house coming to play. And there was always a pile of shoes at the door. I mean, kids now, they just take their shoes off, and there's a pile of shoes at the door. And but there's always shoes around, or shoes in the car, or there's
more shoes than people?
Yeah, absolutely.
You give a very nice picture of your family. It really is.
They're fine. In fact, I'll tell you, the reason we took the apartment, my mother and father always lived in Miami Beach, so I liked it, so I liked it there. We used to it. And Jeffrey had a big apartment in Miami Beach, and he had a partner that he was together with for quite a few years. They had a commitment ceremony. It was just like a wedding. And his partner was wonderful, wasn't you? Really really nice, and I liked him very much. And then they split up. So, then Jeffrey, part of his business, moved to New York, so he's in New York a lot anyway, and he teaches part-time now at NYU. So he's not in Miami that much anyway, and he's trying to sell the apartment there because he's just bought a bigger apartment in New York. We go for a few months. I don't know whether we'll stop going or whatever. I mean, and we traveled a lot with the children when they were younger. We had a motor home, and first we had a tent trailer, then we had a trailer, and we went cross country with the children. So, they always just kind of love it. I think Jeffrey, that's how Brian got his love of travel, and Jeffrey too. And then we had a motorhome too. A small home in Deborah went away to college, then we had a bigger one. I still miss a motorhome. I used to love that.
Do you do gardening anymore?
Yeah, I still do on the deck and pots and stuff. Yeah, I still garden in the spring.
Are there many people in the community you have known all your life?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Lester knew a lot. Is there people that are still here? Just Roz Ziskin I knew from when I was little. And Frieda Knopf, went off and on over the years. And I don't know who else lives here. No, I know people from a good Shalom I still see, but I don't think they were here when we were children.
Do you have anything that you want to call our attention to or speak about?
No.
Hobbies, leisure activities, community?
What do? I do very little. I read. I do needlepoint, which I like to do. And what else? I've been taking watercolor classes for a couple of years. And I kind of potchkey around with it. I'll never be an artist, but I mix the colors, and I like to go to the classes, and that's what. I do that. And I took another class at Normal Community College, which was very good. The learning retirement kind of thing, which was very good class. It was about race relations. Actually, it started out how's Obama doing or something, but it ended up really, and that was very interesting. And the ones in Stanford I go to, something, and that I think that's all. They really do.
Well, I thank you for your time and sharing all of these feelings and knowledge and information.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a pleasure. And do you have something you want to show us?
This was Lester went through a bunch of stuff. I don't know. This is when my father, there was a fire at the store on Atlantic Street, and this is our wedding picture.
Yeah,
you would still recognize us if you met us on the street, wouldn't you?
Well, since Lester showed it to us, I would now recognize you.
Okay. And this is my father's citizenship papers, and that's when he changed his name. It was Rovinsky.
Okay.
And
Good
I see
choice.
it's Rovinsky, it says here, and then he changed it to Roven. And this is my mother's birth certificate. She was listed as a male. And her name was Mary. That's why we could never understand why she was named Mary. But on here, what did it say? Her father was a tailor. Hannah was her mother. We called her Anna. And her father was Doodle, Romanian. male, white. Oh, and here was her name, Mary Ann's. In fact, my father, Ben, I remember his cousins always called her Miriam instead of Mary. I could never understand why. I think because they didn't like the name Mary. Must have had a non-Jewish connotation.
And Miriam was probably her Jewish
Her
Hebrew name.
Jewish name, yeah. And that.
You better thank her all over again as a wind-up.
What
Okay.
was this?
Well, it's nice to get
Social
an
marriage
opportunity.
certificate. Oh, this was my mother. What was this? My mother. Oh yeah, name of the bride, Mary Leibowitz, and Albert Roven. Okay. Oh, and then. Oh, this is my bubby. This was the back of the farm. This was the farmhouse in Newtown, and this was my my mother's mother, and my father's mother, and my father, and me, and my brother Larry.
We'll put
My
that-
brother Larry never married. He became a hippie in the hippie generation and never recovered. He lives in Ashland, Oregon now. Now he's in a senior residence, which is great because for a while he was practically homeless. So he's in a senior residence now, and he's.
What about his schooling?
Huh?
His schooling, he graduated from MIT.
Right, he graduated from MIT.
Well, thank you very much, and
Thank
we'll
you.
wind all this up.
Okay, that's good.
Did you do the family